but he was asking general philosophical questions. So he started with the question, please give us directions on how one should live for real happiness. Very general type of question, which you could have in any group of people who are even not directly Krishna conscious. When you're with faithful devotees, you get to the point, straight about Krishna. But sometimes when you're with other people, you may have to little beat around the bush. Or when you're with other people, you may have to tiptoe, be very cautious what you speak, etc. But with devotees, you are just full on, isn't it? So Vidura was building up. So he was setting the tone. And the next question then he asked is, he comes to the point now. Because real happiness is possible only by devotional service to Krishna. So his next question is, please give me instruction on the transcendental devotional service to the Lord. So now he's come to the subject. He couldn't beat around the bush too much. Came to the point. And then he says, a third question, kindly narrate how the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts incarnations, number one. That's the first part of the third question. And creates the cosmic manifestation. So now Vidura wants to know from Maitreya Muni about the Lord's incarnations and about how he creates the cosmic manifestation, the whole universe. Then the next question he says, the fourth question is, please narrate the auspicious characteristics of the Lord in his different incarnations. Because the Lord has innumerable incarnations, and in each of them he exhibits many wonderful auspicious characteristics which are very purifying and uplifting for all to hear about. Very purifying for all of us. The fifth question, he wants to know, in the process of creation, there are so many living entities, and how does the Lord accommodate these living entities in different residences? Meaning, how does he accommodate them in different planets? Obviously, the number of living entities is extremely large, and they're not going to be accommodated on one planet. And all the living entities are of different mentalities, so it's not suitable to put them all on one planet. So you have to have many planets. That's the reason there are many planets, to accommodate people of different mentalities. So Vidura wants to know how the Lord has made arrangement for the living entities in different planets. How are they distributed throughout the universe? So that is his question. Then the next question he asks, question number 6, is also describe how the Lord has created the natures, activities, forms, features and names of the different living creatures. So he wants to know about the creation. He wants to know about how the living entities are distributed throughout the creation. And now in this 6th question, he wants to know about the different types of living entities in the world. What are the different natures? What are the different activities? What are the different forms and features? And what are their names? There are 8.4 million species of life. So Vidura naturally wants to know about them. And the 7th question he wants to know. Now he comes to the point. And he says, I want to hear Krishna Katha. I've heard from many other narrations, I've heard about this and that, but now let's get to the real point. Do you say cut to the chase? Something like that you say? Yeah? You say that?
Cut the chase.
Cut to the chase. What's the meaning of that phrase? Cut to the chase.
Get to the point.
Get to the point. Now he's getting to the point. But of course, for our benefit also, he has to ask all these questions. We must remember that great souls ask questions not only for themselves. They ask questions for us, for posterity, so that we may benefit. Because we may not even have the knowledge and intelligence to ask these questions, first of all. We may not even realize that there are such things that should be asked. And then then we may not have the right person to pose these questions to. So even Arjuna, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Krishna actually made Arjuna an instrument. And using Arjuna, he shot the arrow of good instructions and he targeted the whole world. So Arjuna was like an instrument on behalf of all of us. He posed as a person who was bewildered and confused and asked questions. And then Krishna answered them all. So now Vidura says, I want to hear Krishna Katha straight. And the next several verses are regarding this topic of pure Krishna Katha, all the way from 7 to 15. And he concludes this particular question by saying, kindly describe the essence of all topics, the topics of the Lord. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that this is the essence. Vidura requested Maitreya to speak of the essence, which is talks of Krishna and nothing else. And as we know, Krishna Katha is of two types. Which two types? What are the two types of Krishna Katha?
One.
Chanting the holy name? Yes. But the two types?
One Krishna Lila.
Huh?
One
Yes.
spoken by Krishna, other spoken of Krishna.
That's right. One kind of Krishna Katha is that which is spoken by Krishna, like Bhagavad Gita. The other is Katha spoken about Krishna by others, like the Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are the two types of Krishna Katha. And Srila Prabhupada has repeatedly stressed how, as practicing devotees, it is important for us to hear and read both types of Krishna Katha. Katha spoken by Krishna and Katha spoken about Krishna. Of course, they are very much interlinked, because when Krishna speaks, he also speaks about himself. So when Katha by Krishna is also about Krishna. When Krishna declares that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to give knowledge to Arjuna and to us about who God is. So he has to speak about himself, because if he doesn't speak about himself, who else will? And how will we know God if God doesn't reveal himself to us? So these are the two kinds of Krishna Katha. And Vidura now is definitely, he wants to hear about these glorious pastimes. Kindly chant all those superhuman transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Maitreya, when he's hearing all these questions, it must have taken a few minutes. And of course, they were not in a hurry to get back. They didn't have to go to work the next day, and things like that. So things were much more peaceful. So they had time. He could peacefully ask questions without worrying about, I have to answer my emails, and I have to, so many missed calls, and there's someone trying to contact me through messaging, and I have to answer, and the mind is distracted with so many other things. No. They were peacefully sitting there, and Vidura was asking questions peacefully. There was a constraint of time for Shukadev Goswami and King Parikshit, because King Parikshit had been cursed to die in 7 days. But even then, it went along fairly peacefully. There was no interruption of no Facebook messages and no WhatsApp messages and no phones beeping through, nothing like that. So you can imagine for Vidura and Maitreya, things were much more relaxed. So the questioner was relaxed. He was taking his time to ask questions because they were relevant questions. And then Maitreya Muni now was very pleased to hear his questions and to hear his submissive tone and his eagerness. And he began to now glorify Vidura. He says, it is not at all wonderful that you have accepted the Lord without deviation of thought, for you were born of Vyasadeva. Like father, like son. Yes? So Vidura's father was none other than Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedas, the compiler of the Vedas. And he says, he gives his history of Vidura. What was Vidura in the previous life? Yamaraj. And why did Yamaraj become Vidura? Because he was cursed by a sage called Mandavya Muni. And if you want to know why he was cursed and what happened, then you'll have to read it. I must leave something for you to read. There must be some element of suspense. Cannot tell you everything. This is supposed to be a summary, right? So then, and he says, you're one of the eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is for your sake that when the Lord was going back to his abode, he left instructions with me for you, my dear Vidura. So just see, special soul, Vidura. And then he begins his answers. He begins by speaking about the creation, because that is where Vidura had hinted in the beginning to Maitreya Muni, that start your answers by speaking about the creation and how it happens. And sequentially then he will move ahead and answer those questions. So the Purusha avatars, the three expansions of the Lord in the material creation, they are responsible for the activities of creating, maintaining and destroying the universe, all the aggregate of universes. Who are those three expansions of the Lord? Karanodakashaya Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu and Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. Everybody knows this? Okay. No, I don't see bright faces. There's some little blinking of the eyes. Okay, so what are the three forms, the three expansions of the Lord who are responsible for the material creation? They are called Purusha avatars. Who are the three once again? Karanodakashaya Vishnu is also called Mahavishnu. The second, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And the third, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. So gradually you will begin to learn what these terms mean, who these three Purusha avatars are, and even summarily what their function is. So we'll start with the first one, who is Mahavishnu or Karanodakashaya Vishnu. He is the Lord who is the origin of who creates this material world fundamentally. So he exists even before the creation. So even when there is no creation, the Lord exists, the spiritual world exists. And then there is a Lord and there is Maya. There is a Lord's spiritual energy, there is a Lord's material energy, and there is the Lord. So the spiritual world is beyond. But now when the task of creating the material world comes up, then the Lord looks at the material energy which is called Maya. Illusion, it's the world of illusion where conditioned living entities are put into the snare of illusion, of forgetfulness of Krishna. But actually it is intended as a place where people may eventually rectify their errant mentalities and struggle to return to the spiritual world. That is the purpose of the material creation. So he creates this material world. It all begins by his glance. And when he glances, that Maya now transforms into what is called Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva is the borderline between spirit and matter. It is a sum total of consciousness. And Mahat Tattva transforms into false ego. False ego then now is divided according to the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And what emerges from goodness? The mind, the demigods. What emerges from the mode of passion? The senses. And what emerges? What's the first thing that emerged? You can please, those of you who are there, you can look up. What is the first thing that comes up after the senses have been formed? It is sound. Everything begins from sound, and then it further goes on. So what I'll do is, I'll leave you to read the rest of the chapter. As I said, if I had known a day or two earlier, I could have made a big chart, but I scribbled a few things as I was coming in the car in the few minutes, and I'll just try to maybe draw it here on the chart. It's an incomplete chart because it's relevant only for this chapter, but maybe it'll be helpful. Yes, you want to know?
Yes.
Oh, I have to take this off?
No, you can.
I can keep it. All right. Back to my teacher mode. Okay. All right. Okay, sorry. How do we do this? So you may have to come a little this side, Sarah, because I may need to write. Maybe you can come on this side. Material energy is called Maya. Where does she come from? Whose energy is she? Krishna. And specifically, Mahavishnu. And he's got his glance. He impregnates Maya with his glance. The Lord is spiritual. Every part of him is spiritual. His body is spiritual. His senses are spiritual. So he can accomplish with any one limb the functions of any other limb. So merely by his glance he impregnates. And then from Maya, there is the Mahat Tattva. As I mentioned, the Mahat Tattva is, what did I say it was? The borderline between spirit and matter. Now we are talking of a time when the material universes have not been formed. Right in the beginning. Here Maya refers to actually what is called Pradhan, even though it is not mentioned there. What is Pradhan? Pradhan is when the material energy is in an unmanifest condition. It's asleep. It's dormant. You see, material energy can never be destroyed. It can only be either dormant or it can be manifested. When it is dormant, then it's called Pradhan. And when it manifests, there's activities going on, differentiation going on, and many universes are created, living entities, their bodies are formed and everything, then gradually it's called Prakriti or Maya. Okay? Then Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva is the borderline between spirit and matter. It's also called the sum total of consciousness. Then from here comes false ego. Alright? Now Prakriti has also started differentiating according to the three modes of material nature. What are the three modes of material nature? Goodness, passion, ignorance. Okay. Now from goodness comes the mind. The original mind from which the mind is then made in the different living entities. And then come the demigods. Okay, I'm just giving you a brief outline. We'll not talk of this for now. It is not mentioned it's not described in the chapter. Okay? Senses. And what does it say? Sound. Yes? Now this is interesting. You have sound. Isn't it said in the Bible, in the beginning there was the Word? So basically there's a fundamental unity. Sound is the origin of everything. Yes? So there is sound. Now sound, where does it exist in? How many of you have done Bhakti Shastri here? Few. There's ether. Sound needs ether or the sky. Without that, the sound cannot move. Yes? So from sound comes sky. Now, I make two columns like this. Now, can anyone fill up what's going to come after this? There are 5 sense objects. There is sound, taste, touch, etc. We'll come to that. And what are the 5 elements? The 5 elements from Bhagavad Gita that you hear? In reverse order: earth, water, fire, air, ether. So now go in reverse order.
Air will come next.
So you can actually do this then you can easily do it. What's next?
Air.
Air. Then? Fire. Then?
Water.
And then? Earth. Okay. Now what do you have with air? Touch. The sense of touch. So from sound, then sky is created. From sky, the sense of touch is created. From that, air is created. And then, what's possible with fire?
Sight.
Light.
Sight.
Form. Then from form, fire is created. Then what is the special quality about water? Taste. And then what's the special feature of the earth? Smell. Yes? So what are the 8 elements of which the material nature is made? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. This is also ether. Mind, intelligence, false ego. So those 8 elements, that's how you get it here. So these are those gross elements. And these are the 3 subtle elements. And what are these called? Sense objects. In Sanskrit, tanmatras, okay? So that is what is described in this chapter. So this is a summary of the creation process as is described in this chapter. And if you want to know what's in the next chapter, you'll have to wait till the next session. Or you have to read. So, is it okay? Any questions? Too heavy? Too strong? Too confusing? Yes.
The material world is an illusory, spectrum of Krishna's material energy. But is the material world just an illusion or a reflection of the spiritual world? Because it's so temporary.
So your question is the material world an illusion at all?
Yeah.
Yes?
Just a reflection of the spiritual world and not really.
It depends on your point of view. If we are forgetful of Krishna, then this material world is an illusion in the sense that we identify ourselves with the material body. And we identify the material world as being a place for us to enjoy independently. And we are forgetful of Krishna. So when we have these features in our consciousness, then the world is an illusion for us. We may think it's a reality, but actually it places us under gross illusion. But for a pure devotee of the Lord, that devotee sees this universe as Krishna's energy to be used in Krishna's service. So as far as the devotee is concerned, this world is not an illusion, it's a reality. Because Krishna's energy is always a reality. Let me give a simple example. Suppose there is someone dreaming that he is a king. Now, what is illusion and what is reality? That he is a king is an illusion. But the fact that he dreamt that he was a king is a reality. Right? The fact that he had a dream is a reality. So the dream is not false in the sense that it happened. The dream happened. But the contents of the dream are not reality. So similarly, this material world is real. But the contents of what's happening within the world, as far as I am concerned, or any conditioned soul is concerned, it is illusion, because I think I'm this body, I'm the enjoyer, my name is such and such. Yes? Yes.
I don't quite understand the sky, air and touch. I understand the rest of it, but that comes, I find that confusing.
One comes from the other. This is a sequential thing. From this comes this, from this comes this, from this in this it comes this. From here we get this, from sky we get touch, from touch we get air, from air we get form. These are created. This is a sequence of creation of these different elements. So there is something called form.
Yeah, but the touch and the air and the sky, I don't...
Yeah, from the sky you get touch. That's a sequence in which these things are created. And you see, sound and sky have a correlation. Touch and air have a correlation. You can touch, you can feel when wind blows, you feel touch. Form and fire, light, has a correlation. Taste and water has a correlation. Smell and earth has a correlation. Now, the earth has all these qualities. Water doesn't have smell. It's not supposed to, unless you put something in it.
Yeah, it's taste.
Unless you put something in it, in which case it doesn't become pure water. So water has these qualities, but not this. Fire has these qualities. You can touch fire, you can hear it even. But it doesn't have these two. Air doesn't have form, doesn't have taste, doesn't have smell in its pure form. But air has touch and sound. Sky has only sound. You can't touch the sky, there's no form, there's no taste, no smell.
It's true.
Yes? So this is the grossest form. This is the subtlest form of these gross elements. So the grosser the element, the more inclusive it is of all the other previous characteristics. Well, you asked for it. You asked me to speak on 5th chapter. So it's not my fault. Yes.
Raj, the ultimate false ego that we have is our misidentification that we are the body.
Yes.
Now, we hear, we read, we get the instructions that we should not misidentify us as the body and we should identify us as the spirit soul, which we have to identify. So, and often we try our best, but the default positions of the humans keep coming back by this misidentification. And looking at the creation, false ego is the first one to come. So hence, by definition, it's so difficult.
The most powerful.
So difficult to get rid of. So, on one hand, when we are practicing devotional life, we are expected to do that very, very quickly, that stop identifying yourself as body. But by this default position, it is the most difficult to get rid of. So, are we really at a fault because we keep defaulting to that position because of our inbred creation? Or should we be feeling so guilty about it all the time? Or should we, I can't reconcile to this fact that we are born like that. So
Well, there is a simple solution, and that is to chant Hare Krishna. That will make us get rid of the false ego and to serve the devotees. Problem solved. That's all. If we just do these things, that's enough. That will take care of all these problems. Fundamentally, everything starts from false ego. Okay? Yes.
I didn't understand the pradhana. Could you elaborate on that?
Pradhana is when, let's say you have a potter, right? What does a potter do? It takes some clay. And the clay, a lump of clay just lying there. Now what does he do? He puts water and then he kneads it, and there's certain things he does. And then he has a rotating wheel, and then he starts moving it, he shapes it, and as the wheel moves, then he starts working on it. Eventually you have a beautiful pot that's made out from it. So the pot is like the cosmic manifestation in its total end of the creation. When the universe is created and the planets are in place, so the species are in place, everything is done, the finished product of the universe is like the finished pot. And the clay is like pradhana. So when the clay is destroyed, or the pot is destroyed, it goes back to the clay. So the entire cosmic manifestation is destroyed, it goes back